Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Jeff Askoff, and in this video we're going to be talking about manual focus lenses, how we use them on the street, how we improve our focus accuracy and speed, and we're also going to be talking about what to look out for if you're in the market for a manual focus lens. Now, like most photographers of my generation, I started my career shooting with manual focus lenses, basically because that's all we had. All the medium format equipment that we were using was manual focus, and 35mm cameras, the autofocus was just starting to come in, but it wasn't particularly good, and it was really kind of expensive. Now, as a professional photographer, I had to learn how to focus quickly and accurately with a manual focus lens, and nearly 36 years on from there, and many hundreds and hundreds of thousands of images all shot with manual focus lenses, I thought it was about time I did this video. There's a lot of interest in vintage analog equipment now. Also, there's a lot of interest in the Leica rangefinder camera system. Now, if you're looking at getting a manual lens for the first time, there are a couple of things that you should be aware of. The first thing is that a lot of lenses come in a black finish and a silver finish. Now, personally, I would always go for a black finish. With a black finish, it's easier to see the numbers that are printed on the lens. You can see your distance scales correctly. You can see where your zone focus lies. You can also see your apertures very easily. With a silver lens, it becomes very difficult to see those numbers, particularly on the street in certain lighting situations. Now, the second thing is, if you buy a big, fast lens, you have to move the focusing ring a lot further in order to achieve focus. The problem with that, of course, is if you're out on the street and you need to focus quickly, it's going to take you longer to do that. Now, normally bigger lenses come with faster apertures, so you have to compromise. Do I want an f1.4 aperture, or am I happy with an f2 or an f2.8 aperture? Because the smaller the lens, the quicker it is to focus. The downside to having a lens which is too small, the depth of field markings become less accurate and they become less easy to read. Unfortunately, this is the trouble with manual focus lenses. They are always a little bit of a compromise. So when it came to buying the 35, the 28, the 21, the most important thing for me was that the lens had to have a good distance scale, because I was going to be using zone focusing with those lenses, and any focusing inaccuracies would largely be taken care of by the increase in depth of field. When it came to the 50mm, I ended up with two. I started off with the Noctilux lens. The problem with the Noctilux is that the throw on it, the focusing throw on it, is absolutely huge, and it takes forever to focus. In normal use, when I was on the street, the Noctilux became really awkward and really difficult to use, and the depth of field scale wasn't really compact. It was hard to read at times. So I ended up buying a little 50mm Summicron, which became my main 50mm lens, because it had the smaller depth of field scale, it had the smaller focusing throw, but it wasn't super tiny that I couldn't get accurate focusing. Now, when Leica launched the M6 and the M6TTL, they had a period where they offered higher viewfinder magnifications than the 0.72 standard and lower magnifications. They produced a 0.58 finder, which is a lower magnification, and a 0.85 viewfinder, which was a higher magnification. Now, when I first started out, I bought two of these. This is the 0.085 higher magnification viewfinder, because I used 50mm a lot, and it just allowed me to focus extremely quickly and extremely accurately. The only downside, of course, is if you want to use anything wider than 50mm, you're going to have to think about using external viewfinders. Now, with the 0.58 viewfinder, the lower magnification viewfinder, it allowed photographers with glasses to be able to see frame lines easily for 35mm and 28mm. And this is my 0.58 Leica M6TTL with the 28mm lens on it. I don't have to use a viewfinder for this lens, an external viewfinder for this lens, because I can still see the frame lines really easily even when wearing glasses. So this tends to be my main camera for all my 28mm work, and then the other one's my main camera for all my 50mm work. So when it comes to focusing manual lenses, there are basically two ways you can actually do it. There's the sort of standard way, which is to bring the camera to the eye and turn the focusing ring till the lens is in focus, or you can use zone focusing. Now, with me, I tend to use zone focusing for all the wide angle stuff, and I tend to physically focus 50mm and above. Now, when it comes to zone focusing with a wide angle, I like to shoot at about 12 feet away from the subject. That's my comfort zone, I guess. So I'll set my lens to 12 feet and I'll set my aperture usually to f8. And I know by doing that, I've got so much behind the subject in focus and I've got so much in front of the subject in focus. And that's my zone of focus. And for me, when I'm shooting on the street, that's by far and away the easiest and the quickest way for me to work. And it's very accurate. With a 50mm lens, zone focusing doesn't work so well. It's not as easy to use, and it really relies on you being able to get your aperture up to f8, f11 or even f16 at times. And that's just not practical, particularly if I'm shooting with film. So with a 50mm lens, I've got to go down the route of bringing the camera up to my eye and turning the lens till the picture is in focus. There's a couple of things that I like to do to help me do this quickly and efficiently. Now, you can probably hear on this lens, there's a hard stop at infinity. So whenever I hear that click, I know my lens is focused at infinity. Most of my pictures are going to be taken probably between 5 meters and infinity with this lens. You know, I'm obviously going to be a lot further back than I am with a wide angle. If I start from infinity, the amount of movement on this lens to 5 meters is that. You probably can't even see it on camera. So if my camera's up to the eye, I only have to move it that far in order to achieve focus at 5 meters. If you leave your lens, I don't know, in the middle of the lens barrel, I know some people do, say we'll leave it at 2 meters. 2 meters to 5 meters is a much bigger throw. And invariably what you do is you go too far and then come back with the focus. By using the hard stop infinity method, you're literally only going to turn the lens in one direction and it's going to achieve focus extremely quickly. Sometimes photographers try and focus on really low contrast subjects and they find it really difficult to find focus with their eyes. You need to be looking at areas which have high contrast or vertical or horizontal lines which are in the same plane as the subject, and focus on that. And the final thing that really helped me, and this went more towards my previous career as a wedding photographer when I was shooting Leica lenses at a wedding, one of the hardest things to do is to move and focus. When I achieve focus, I would always move my body rather than trying to move the lens. So if somebody was coming towards me, I would step backwards at the same rate as they were walking towards me, knowing that I didn't have to keep focusing the lens. It just made things really easy and really simple. So by achieving focus and moving at the same rate that they were moving, I kept everything in focus and it worked really well for me. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you found it useful, we'd love to see you subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.